It looks like I might have a few small numbers today. But it's nice and cozy last week too, wasn't it, Steve? We just had you and Wei from Auckland.
Didn't we have the nice lady typing everything in? Was that last week or was that the week before?
No, that was last week. That was Wei from Auckland.
Wei, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
She
Poor
did
old,
so good.
poor Wei lost her
Lost her
talking.
way.
Lost her microphone. Had to type everything. She did incredibly well. I was very impressed.
Excellent.
Oh, you've lost me now. I'll be giggling all day.
Have you? Um, so, welcome. And what we're going to look at today is sort of assessment, carrying on with what we did last week, and sort of looking at assessment, the bigger picture. I've lost my headphones, so I'm just trying to yell in a room. So if I do tend to disappear, please yell out at me. So by the end of today, we'll discuss the requirements for, assessment to be effective. What are these requirements? And we'll compare and contrast some assessment examples. So what I've just put up on your screen is a link to a Padlet. So if you could actually just grab that link and put it into your search engine, and then we'll be able to bring up the Padlet. At the same time, I'll actually share my screen with you, so we can see what's going on. Alrighty, so you should have a big brick wall in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yep. So when you think about assessment, I mean, last week we really talked about, what are the principles of assessment, and we went through a whole list that it needs to be timely, that it needs to be authentic. What else did we have in there, Steve? That we wanted it to be open and transparent, and it had to be meaningful, manageable,
Yep.
fair, valid, consistent, all those sort of words.
On time.
Time, exactly. And then we also talked about, what was the purpose of assessment? Why do we actually even need assessment? And so there were lots of results from that. It's a measure, it's a gap analysis. It identifies where the polytech is at. That we're providing learners that are, confident in their ability to meet the needs of industry. And so taking sort of a step larger than that, in that we think, what is needed for effective assessment? If we're creating an assessment for our learners, what does making it effective mean? What is maybe some of the parts of assessment? How do we know our learners are going to be able to meet the needs of the assessment?
By doing formative assessments frequently prior to your summative assessment.
Yep, definitely. So if we say frequent formative assessment, because then we know that our learners are actually, where they're heading in the right direction. So definitely.
Spend one-on-one time with students you are maybe not sure about. You have those kids that don't interact much with the class, and you've got to try and drag them out of themselves a little bit. So maybe go one-on-one with some of them.
Yeah. One-on-one meetings, almost again, it's kind of, sometimes I sort of call them strength-based interviews, because it's quite difficult at times, when you sit down and say to a learner, well, you haven't done this, and you need to do, these things. Sometimes I
What did you call it, Trish?
A strength-based interview.
All right, so rather than telling them they're hopeless at something, you try and tell them find something they're good at.
Absolutely. I love the way you put it, Steve, but that's exactly true. So
that was a really good wet willy you give Janie early on. But by the way, how are you going with this assignment?
Well, you say to them, I can see leadership skills, and I can see, that you bring the group together, and, you're great, say with your example, you're great with machinery and identifying parts of the engine, and then saying to them, so, where do you where do you think that you need assistance and help?
Yep.
You know,
Cool.
where can I help you in getting to the end result? And it's actually quite interesting, you know, how they where they see themselves.
Oh, yeah, if you can get them to say the words, that means a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another way of doing your one-on-one meetings, because you know they've gone, oh my goodness, I'm doing this really well, I'm doing that really well, but I really feel I'm struggling with the anatomical positions of the body or something, and so right, let's work together on those.
Yeah, cool.
So what else? If I'm thinking, right, I need to create a summative assessment, so the end of the course. What is needed maybe in the materials that I give to my learners?
Well, you need to know what you need to be summating. You need to know what your marking rubric is and what delivery you're testing. You can't just randomly throw a summative assessment at them unless it's super relevant to what you've been teaching, and what you've been teaching has been the right stuff.
That's exactly true. And you definitely cannot throw a summative assessment at them, because at the beginning of the program, the beginning, first day of course, they need to know what the summative assessments are and when they are. So again, for it to be effective, maybe that's something that, they need to have the material in a timely manner.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you can keep them up to speed with what's happening, they really like to know what's going on. That nobody likes surprises.
No, exactly. And as adult learners, we especially don't. So we need to know right exactly what's happening. So what are some other parts? So you sort of think of the parts of your assessment. If you're sitting down and collating all the information that you need for your learners to do a summative assessment, what are all the parts of it? What are you handing them?
I don't know if this was covered last week, but obviously the assessment, the activities that you're doing in class need to have been covered, or the assessment material needs to have been covered by the activities themselves.
Absolutely. And constructive alignment. If we haven't covered the assessment activities in the classroom, you haven't given your learners an opportunity to practice.
Yeah.
So you've thrown them in the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So assessment aligned to
to the teaching strategies and the and activities in the classroom.
Right. Oh, my spelling's gone out the window.
Your spellings are right, just missing some spaces, that's all.
Yeah. You guys get in there and type them. What else? So, the assessment. What are the parts of the assessment?
There's the first part, and then this middle bit, and then there's the end bit.
And what are they called?
Oh, that's a very good question. You have an introduction, a preface.
Yeah. So that would be, in sort of assessment talk, there'd probably be conditions. So we'd look at, how is the assessment going to be, is it going to be set up as practical? Is it going to be set up as a written? There might be wording sort of along the lines of, this is the second assessment out of 3 for, the effective assessment course, and this will be a essay. You will have time within the classroom to complete this essay, and it will be due on such and such a day. So it's kind of giving that student an overview of how this assessment is going to roll out.
Cool.
What else would you be needing?
Time frame?
Yeah.
This is one of the conditions.
Yeah, but that is actually something that's incredibly important that we need to talk about, the time frame. Definitely.
They need to know, I guess, the conditions again, whether it's an open book assessment.
Yep.
And whether open book means, can I refer to Google on my phone?
Yes, and generally that won't be the case. and you will need to stipulate that that it is open book and refer to the specific book, etc. If it's a gosh, what is it? There's a one course, and I do talk about it quite a bit because I find it incredibly interesting. It's the electrical courses, and they have an external body similar to you too, Darren, and they have an open book assessment, and it's a really, really interesting assessment because all it's actually proving, I'm going to get told off for saying this, but all it's actually proving is that people can find the material and copy it verbatim into their answer sheet.
Oh, so much of that open book stuff it just assesses your ability to refer to the friggin' index, really.
That's it. That's exactly it. So if you look at your learning outcomes, it's completely bypassing those. I had a conversation today as well with somebody in a completely different context, and it was just a passing comment, and somebody was actually reviewing another assessment, and the students had to create something and video them creating it. And the video was purely the platform to get that information to the, as evidence to the teacher. But most of the marks, about 50% of the marks, were on the video. How the platform that was used, how clear the material was, and none of the learning outcomes had anything to do with video because it wasn't a video course.
That's so much of it, though. I mean, all your forms of testing are unfortunately assessing people's ability to pass the type of test you've given them. So if it's a written test, you're assessing their ability to pass written tests, and if it's a video presentation, again, to a large degree, you're going to end up assessing their ability to present a video. And are these things relevant?
What are your thoughts? Are they relevant?
Unfortunately, people who are good at passing tests are mostly quite good at other things.
But it's any of your, Darren, any thoughts to add?
Well, I was just thinking about around the outcome-based sort of assessment. So if you're starting from the position of what outcome do you want to see? So, for example, not that we do it here, but if we wanted to assess someone's ability in splinting, we would look at the outcome. So what have they created as the end product? And I was reading something Biggs that was talking about, it's if you're looking at the outcomes, it's if you want to learn, if you want to assess someone's driving abilities, then you assess the act of driving. And it was written somewhere else as well, if you want to assess someone's ability to tie a shoelace, then that's what you assess at the end, that they can tie that shoelace. But are you also assessing the process of how they tie their shoelace, or just the end result, I suppose, would be the question.
Depends on the learning outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than getting to write a 1,200-word essay on how to tie a shoelace.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
We call that constructive alignment, which is Biggs's baby, isn't it?
You might just climb out of that fish tank there, Trish.
Yeah, I can't hear you now. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Oh, I am in a fish tank. You should see my office. It's glass windows on three sides. So what other materials do you have? So we've said, right, we need to know what the conditions are. We need the marking rubric, obviously, that our learners are privy to as well. They know exactly what they're being marked against.
We really can't hear you.
Oh, really? Oh, gone.
Well, I don't know if it's just me.
No, I'm struggling as well. I can catch some of the words.
Sorry. Is that better? No?
I think so.
But coming in a bit more?
You're in and out a bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Apologies. I don't know what's happened to my headphones. It's my turn this week to have a problem. Again, just yell out. So other aspects or other parts, we need our instructions to be clear of our, how the assessment is going to, what's needed. Part one of the assessment requires you to, diagnose who your learners are. Part two requires you to write a lesson plan. Part three requires you to have a teaching observation, for example.
So you're talking about the guidelines.
Yeah. So guidelines, definitely. Does somebody want to put that up on their wall? Because if I do,
Go on, I'll give it a go. No, I don't know. Is it? No, mine's not working.
oh, excellent. Oh,
I'm clicking on the little yellow, no, the little pink pencil thing. It's not doing anything.
just click on the wall, Darren. Straight onto the wall.
Yeah, no, that's not happening either.
Not happening either. Okay.
No.
So our guidelines. Can you do it?
Oh,
Steve, no luck?
hey, somebody's done it.
Yep. Are you able to get in?
No, I can't type anything on there either.
Okay. What about a marking cover sheet? Anyone heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To say who you are and what you've done and how many words, and is that what you're talking about?
No, slightly different. So, well, no, actually, you are quite right. There's the marking cover sheet that does go, as you upload your assessment onto Moodle, often there's a cover sheet that you apply.
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely that. And what sort of information does that have?
Oh, so your word count, and there's normally a statement as well around citing the work as your own and not plagiarism.
Right.
So you're making. So in a sense, it's a contract, I suppose.
Yeah. There may also there'll be space for the final grade. There'll be sometimes space for comments or feedback. Choose a signature, choose a name.
Yeah.
There may also be on them whether there's been a resubmission or a reassessment opportunity. So how do we know then, if you're looking at assessment, and I'm going to put one assessment up, so you should have an assessment for a certificate in film and stage arts come onto your screen.
I'm still staring at I see the brick wall.
I can see it.
Got it. Yeah. Sorry.
Can you? Oh, I was lying. I couldn't see it.
Oh. So looking at this, and this is a completely fake one that we've created, you've got the parts that we've talked about. So we've got the conditions, we've got some information about reassessments, we've got that it's, one assessment for this whole course, and we've got a marking rubric under assessment criteria at the bottom. Is that enough information? What are your thoughts on, just sort of have a look through, what are your thoughts on what's provided there?
I'm not seeing what's provided there, but I'd imagine we'd need, I don't know, I've kind of lost track of things here. I've been playing with that little wall, but you've got your marking rubric. You also need your marking assessed. What do you call it when you send it away and get it?
Moderation.
Moderated, that's the word.
Excellent. Hugely important. And that is, for effective assessment, it will need to be pre-moderated prior to be given to the students. And then 3 examples will need to be post-moderated afterwards to ensure that, there's the quality across the teaching and the marking. Definitely. Can you not see this assessment, Steve?
Nah.
If you click on to back onto, I don't know how to describe it, but I clicked back onto the
little house on the top.
The little with Trish's name on it. It came up.
Oh.
And the brick wall went to the background.
Ooh. Something's going on.
Aha.
Push, there's nothing public to show, stealthy fellow, is what I've got. No, that didn't work.
No.
So just looking at what you have got, you could have the resource material that you need to complete if it's an assignment, for example.
Yeah.
So if there was a particular framework or class materials, specific books, literature, etc., that could be
Definitely.
something that could be added.
Yeah.
You could have the. I don't say you've not added the, or I'm just doing a quick skim read, but the actual learning outcomes being assessed you could add on to.
Oh, they are there.
Are they there?
Mm-hmm. They're just above the assessment table.
We can only see
Oh,
the
yeah.
top bit of the wall.
Sorry,
can't we?
yeah, no, I'm scrolling down now. Yep, okay, so they're there.
For you.
Learning outcomes. What about layout?
Yeah. What about the layout?
You could state what the layout is. So if it's going to be an assignment that you need, like you did on your one, need to use APA referencing.
Yeah, definitely.
And a specific font and size font.
Absolutely.
What else is missing? What about due date? Oh, no, you got that. Sorry. Due date.
Could you, from the
I can't see due date written there. Are you including that in time frame?
Yes, definitely. That's in your time frame. So a lot of the time with like with our assessments is as long as they're completed by the end of the course, the last date of the course, that's okay. Could you both complete this assessment with that amount of information?
As in,
To use and maintain a moving image camera and compose shots, and so you need to produce a finished production of minutes.
no, because I can't see what we're talking about, so no, I couldn't.
You still can't? I put the link to it, Steve, in the comments box. It has docs.google.com. It's underneath the Padlet link. Are you able to take that from the comments box and put it into your search engine?
Pushing it, we're pushing the envelope here. Hey! There's a freaking comments box gone.
Has it disappeared on you? Can't find it? Send it again just in case.
Yeah, it's come up. I think you could complete that.
Yeah.
Because you've also got a little bit to say you may choose your topic, but it must be agreed by your teacher before you start shooting. So you've opened a doorway there to have a bit of discussion around that as well.
Yeah, that's true. Gives you the opportunity to give some feedback and some input from the teacher.
Yeah. But there's probably enough.
What about if you were marking it as a teacher looking at the rubric?
No, not really. How would you define excellent camera use versus good camera use versus appropriate camera use?
Nicely picked up.
Or excellent shots composed, good shots composed. It's very, very subjective.
It is very, very subjective. Is there anything else that's, I mean, it's incredibly poor. There's not enough information at all. But is there anything else that you notice looking at the learning outcomes and looking at the rubric?
Use and maintain a moving image camera. Shots. Well, you've missed you. So you've got the composed. You've got you're talking about the shots, but you're not talking about the raw footage at all. From moving image production, what does moving image production mean?
So that's missing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about the subject, to be honest, but it's very limited in information in terms of the assessment criteria.
The other thing that's really interesting about this one is there are 2 learning outcomes and there are 2 rows to the rubric. So the first row is learning outcome 1, use and maintain moving camera, and the second row is learning outcome 2.
But you don't define the weighting. You've got 100% for both. So would that make it easier if you said there was 50% weighting for each, or a 60 and a 40?
One of the biggest issues is, say my learner was absolutely fantastic at learning outcome 1, use and maintain a moving camera, and I gave them 9 out of 10, and then composing shots and raw footage, I thought they were fantastic. Well, actually, sorry, I thought they were really poor at that, so I gave them 4 out of 10. But overall, 9 and 4 are 13. They've got 13 out of 20, so they've passed the assessment, but they've completely missed learning outcome 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they've passed this whole course without meeting the learning outcomes. So is there a problem with that?
Yes. Well, it does. Do not all marking rubrics allow for that to happen? So when the rubrics that we have when we're assessing sort of identification of the knowledge and interpretation, if a student is particularly poor in one area but particularly good in another area, they kind of bump up the overall mark.
You might find, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up another rubric, because it's where am I going? I'll bring
Nice dog.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's bloody naughty. I'm going to bring up another version of the same assessment. Steve, are you with me?
Yeah, but I still yet to find the thing you guys are obviously all got and looking at. I've been all around my computer. I can't find it. Sorry.
Oh, you still can't?
No.
If I send you, so are you able to see the comments box on our conversation?
Somehow or other not, and I usually can.
Ah, that's bizarre.
It is. Well, I can draw all over the wall, though. I worked that out, so how about that? Excellent. I don't know how to rub it out, though.
That's a shame. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly email you the link.
That's a good idea.
So just bear with me for a sec. You probably all have my emails pop up as it's slowly loading. I'll get them out of the way. So I'm going to send you the link to the one that we're talking about at the moment.
Cool.
Okay. And then does that come up for you?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts, Jaron, on the difference between the two?
Well, that whole section on overview is it's disappeared. There we go.
Exactly.
Completely, much more clearer in terms of I'm just reading it now, but the fact that you put demonstrating safe working practices in there, so you're actually clarifying some expectations.
Absolutely, because the first one, and Steve, for you, with the first assessment example, the overview only said the first sentence. To complete this assessment, you'll need to produce a finished production of a minimum of 3 minutes duration.
Hmm.
So, now we have all this extra information, what's the ratio, the shooting ratios, the ratios for documentary. And then, you must demonstrate safe working practices and all the bullet points, etc. The conditions. So with conditions previously only said due date.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing we had with the first one was in reassessment. It said, there will be no opportunities for a reassessment. And if we think, how fair is that if we've got one course that has got 100% weighting on one assessment and you're not giving a reassessment opportunity? Bit rough or not?
Sorry, I missed that last word.
Is that a bit rough? Is that a bit mean to our learners?
I don't know. I think lots of times, how many reassessments do you think are valid? I mean, is 2 goes enough? Shouldn't we get 3? And if 3 weren't enough, shouldn't we get 4? Where do you draw the line?
And the line gets drawn in policy, and if not policy, then across the school. A lot of the time, especially with unit standards, it is 2 reassessments that you're given that opportunity. What do you guys do, Darren?
Can do 1 reset.
1 reset? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the argument, Steve, I mean, that's a good point. At what point, if you keep giving them reset opportunities, at what point do they actually just need to enroll and do the whole course again? So there's
I mean, so many things in life you only get 1 crack at.
Yeah.
So I mean, our guys here, they get a chance, they get chances upon chances. But I just think that, to a degree, that takes away from the reality of it to a degree, or I don't know. But yeah, whatever your marking rubric, whatever everyone else is doing, is what you've got to do. It's got to be fair.
Yeah, and it's got to be fair, and it's got to be consistent across the school or the program. And the other thing that does need to be consistent as well, and sometimes does sort of, slip away as we get towards the end of a year and trying to get people through, is, what is the length of time between your first sit and your resit? Do you guys have a set period of time?
Oh, we do, but the little monsters will just push and push and push and stretch and stretch and stretch against that.
Right.
And to a degree, we're encouraging, it's learnt behaviour, we're encouraging that. We're fostering that to a degree, I feel.
That you're allowing them to get away with pushing it out, or having them quit?
Yeah, I think so. I think to a large degree we are. I told you about the old boy here, Bill, the cooking guy, and he's been here forever. And he shuts his class door at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Boom! If you're not in at 8, then you're out, and you're out for the day. And the higher ups here do not like it one little tiny bit.
No.
And he's an old Scots fella, He said, well, I'm training them for a job, and the most important bit of a job is turning up on time. And I could not argue with him. I love the old fella. He's real cantankerous. But I asked him how it went for him, because I get guys cruising in here at 11:30 going, I slept in, and all this sort of stuff. And I asked Bill how it went for him. He says, on the first day, there's usually somebody who's late who spends half the day hanging around outside. And he says, if anybody's late for the whole rest of the term, I'll be very surprised. So, it's one of those things, isn't it? You've got to draw a line in the sand.
Yep. Yeah, you do. And then it's looking at your cohorts as well, your different learners. You know, you've got the secondary, tertiary, so it's a different bunch. He has a lot of internationals that have paid a lot of money.
Yeah, and why should that make a difference?
Unfortunately, it does.
For sure, for sure. And you know, I'm not bucking City Hall here. I'm just saying, you know, it just seems that we're getting pushed around a little bit, you know, and yeah, you've got to draw a line in the sand somehow. But it seems those lines keep getting shifted back and back and back.
Yeah, I can understand your frustration. Have you got any thoughts on that, Darren? Do you find the same thing?
I think that there was recently there was an email and a review of the amount of students that had applied for impaired performance and extensions as well, from last year compared to previous years, and it does seem to be rising. And there's questions as to why that would be, and we was thinking, well, we as our, you know, part of our student support role, we're often talking about that, so we're kind of promoting that in a sense. So perhaps that's one reason why it's taken up. And there's no real criteria as such. I mean, we do need some evidence. Like if you've been sick, etc., we do ask for a medical certificate. But there's but it's very easy to go and get a medical certificate, isn't it? So there's that aspect but it comes down to our role. You know, we're here to facilitate learning, and people are paying compared to maybe previously when they weren't paying. So do they have a right in terms of their sort of, in a sense, buying a service? So do we have that right to lock people out?
Are they buying a service or are they buying a result?
Yeah, they're buying a result, and they obviously need to. I mean, I agree with you that people need to take some responsibility, but then we have, like our cohort here, we have a lot of mature students, you know, mums with small babies, and you know, just things get in the way in those types of life events. So we acknowledge that. For example, you know, we have people come and bring their babies into class,
Right.
Yeah, you know, there's an agreement, obviously, that they step out if the baby gets a little bit noisy, so as not to disturb other students. But I think we really bend backwards to support students, and part of that, I suppose, is as well coming from above, in terms of, you know, we want high retention rates, so we need to support students to be able to study, and lots of questions, I suppose. There's lots of different ways.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's tricky.
It is. It's complex.
It is very complex, and when that success and retention, you know, which is the bottom line, comes into it, it does make it difficult, because, you know, you are delivering a service. The learners are our customers. But then, you know, you are putting your name to their qualification. So, you know, you want to make sure that you have confidence
I mean,
in passing and being able to work out in the industry.
We're lucky in the sense that we have field work. So, and that, of course, there's an expectation that if for the student that's on field work, that they turn up on time and that they meet all the criteria around being, you know, presentation and professionality. So we're more relaxed in the classroom setting, with the knowledge that they can't push those boundaries on placements, because they're going to be based in a hospital setting or whatever, and their supervisor can fail them if they're consistently late, for example.
Right.
So we've got that sort of backup in that sense, but
That give and take.
so there is some give and take. There's also the question as well. I mean, I struggle with the fact that students don't need to attend classes. So we over the years there is always one or two students that don't attend class, and we can talk to them about it. But if they complete their assignments and exams and pass, then they pass.
Right. So, is there any way that you can put in students must attend 80% of? It's difficult to enforce. I've seen it done before.
No, because the other courses here have that.
Right.
So at Wintec, I believe that nursing, for example, has that criteria, which for me makes sense, because if you are being trained as a health professional and being let loose on on people, that you attend the classes, that you develop those skills, and we as teachers or lecturers see people developing those skills, and not just a snapshot of either exam for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Of your ability to read the index in the open book exam you passed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, we don't have that open book exams as such. Although earlier on, when we do the vivas, students do have that, and then it becomes harder. And by the third year, there's no books.
Right.
So it's graded in that sense.
So with their third year, are they doing more case studies, or sort of showing a capstone of their?
So if for example, if we take the vivas, for example, I believe how it's been running is the first year they will have pretty much open books, so they can use that information.
Right.
Again, it's limited within the second year, and in the third year there's nothing, so it all needs to be coming from them. But again, students that have greater abilities at memorization are going to do better.
Yeah, that's true.
Although some of that is around, the ability to analyse and synthesise information. So.
Isn't it? So, good conversation. I like it. Look what you started, Steve. He's gone.
No, I'm still here. I just didn't quite get the last thing you said.
Oh, I said, look, a great conversation. Look what you started. It's good.
Yeah.
That's what I like. So I don't keep you, because I'm aware, Steve, that you're teaching just after 6.
Yeah.
What else are we noticing about this assessment?
The film and stage arts assessment.
Yeah. Like looking at the marking rubric, and this is a little bit difficult for you, Steve, because you didn't see the first one.
Yeah.
So we may have to sort of follow Darren's prompt on this, but
It's so much more information in there.
So much more, isn't there? I mean, it's really specific as to what we're looking at. We can
extremely specific, where the other one was completely vague.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the assessment criteria here.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very, very detailed. I think I could mark this assignment with that rubric.
And pretty much you should be able to. That's kind of the point. And if you were looking at this in a pre-moderation, this should make sense to you, even though you don't teach the subject. There should be enough information that anybody can mark it fairly. What about the learning outcomes? So with the first assessment that we looked at, there was one row for learning outcome 1 and one row for learning outcome 2. What are we noticing here? And if I flick back up to the learning outcomes, So we've got use and maintain a moving image camera and compose shots and raw footage for a moving image production. If we look at the criteria and, you know, a little bit of a brief as what's in our rubric, what's different with it? Where are you seeing those two learning outcomes?
Well, you've got those conditions there, as well as having that attestation of being observed.
Absolutely. So you've got it backed up and you've got it reinforced by a third party as well.
Yeah. That's the difference.
Definitely. The other thing that, you know, when we think about our rubric here, our assessment criteria, is that we've actually got those two learning outcomes pulled apart or disassembled, so to speak, and then woven into all of the rubric. So even though, you know, what am I trying to say? So even if somebody gets 10 out of 10 for camera features and 10 out of 10 for maintaining the camera, and, you know, who not passes 4 out of 10 for selection of shot type and technical aspects, the learning outcomes are all woven through. So they could get 20 out of 40 and pass, but they still would have passed both of the learning outcomes. So it's kind of, you know, when you are looking, and as you progress through the GDTE and you get into the you know, designing assessment, you know, those are the things that Helen will be really breaking down for you and thinking, you know, so those are the tricks that you need to break down your learning outcomes and weave them into all the rows of the rubric or the assessment criteria, so that you're not missing out, so that no student is able to pass without meeting all the learning outcomes. And plus we have at the very end, we've got that marking cover sheet. So we can see the learner's name, what the result is. What should also be in here is the learner's or the student number. And we've got room for any comments from the teaching staff.
It sort of seems to me you've got your teacher observation and attestation there.
Yeah.
And it seems that there's no piece in your assessment criteria that refers back to that. This is me picking holes in it.
Oh, no, that's good.
It seems that's all that there is a very important part of it all. And then if you look through your assessment criteria, it doesn't seem to me that it's actually mentioned again in the criteria. So does that mean you're going to be watched and assessed on that, and you're going to be observed in that, but they're not scored on that, as it were?
So in the very top sentence, it says you'll be assessed through observation of you working with your camera and on your final production. And then to ensure that you've met, so the teacher observation and attestation, and sometimes it might not be the teacher that's actually doing it. So they need to make sure that you've met all those requirements in the attestation, which then flow out of the assessment criteria. Is that?
Well, no, I didn't really hear you very well there, but I think you fudged your way through it fairly adequately.
What you're asking.
No, I think you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I think they made a bit of a slip up there with their assessment criteria. I think they should have included that and said that you will be, you know, this is part of your, obviously enough part of the criteria, whereas it is sitting above it. It's obviously pretty obviously part of it, but it just, because of where they put the heading, I guess, they could shift the heading up a bit and then that would fix that, wouldn't it?
So where are you saying that? Sorry.
I'm just saying, just when I see exactly what this is me, I'll just say the same thing over and over again.
No, that's the heading that you're shifting up. I'm lost.
If you shift the assessment criteria, and if you put that above teacher observation and attestation,
I see.
make that part of the criteria as well, because it is part of the criteria, I'm sure. If you dropped a gantry on someone's head and lost all the tools and didn't use any safety equipment, didn't follow the manufacturer's instruction, used uncertified equipment, and didn't use any electricity, then I'm sure you'd fail. But it doesn't say that in the assessment criteria, does it?
No, it doesn't say that in the assessment criteria. Those are met right up above underneath the overview. So you must demonstrate safe working practices at all times. So all those words that are in the attestation are up there.
Oh, here's my boys. I better go. Great talking to you all.
All right, Steve.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thanks for your input.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
See you, bye.
Oh, it's good conversation. I love it.
Yeah, very good, very interesting.
Yeah. So, it's actually quite good to have a look at what is a poor example of assessment and what is a stronger example of assessment, and compare, because it actually just keeps that in your mind, of when you're looking at what we need for effective assessment. Do we have enough information for our learners to be able to complete the assessment effectively?
The interesting thing is you don't know how poor something is until you compare it to something much better.
Yes, that's very true. Exactly true. So, no, I know. So a lot of time is spent, looking, if you're going through moderation, you suddenly start to get a grasp on what we're looking for, where we might have missed something. So it's good. And I appreciate Steve picking that up too. That's very cool. Well, you have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of your week off, or 2 weeks off.
Yeah, well, I'm working, but so it's not off as such, but the students aren't here, so
students aren't here.
Great.
Yeah. No schedule, no structure.
No, so I can roll in late, which is lovely.
Oh, good. Oh, no, I appreciate your input for the discussion tonight. Thank you very much, Darren.
No worries. And there's no tutorial next week? Is that right?
No, I will, and I'm on leave, but
you're on leave.
I'll run it from home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try and make it.
Like to keep that consistency.
All good.
Thanks.
All right, you have a good Easter.
I certainly will. You too. Thank you.
All right. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.